Welcome back. All right, so obviously I've moved the set to our rec room for today, which is kind of the set I've been trying to get together for the entertainment guy. I haven't been very happy with that blank space on the wall, so try not to stare at it now that I've pointed it out. But I wanted to talk about four teams that are on winning streaks right now, and realizing that if those winning streaks reach 10, then I have to do a winning streak video for each of these individually. But for today, I'm going to cheat a little bit. The NHL sending out on tweet or on X that this is the first time in NHL history that you have four teams in the NHL with winning streaks of 8 or more. The best thing is the comment section. Come on, do your thing. They haven't beat anybody. They haven't played anybody. Well, that doesn't count because. And the best part with hockey now is this: if you want to discredit a team that's doing well, any team that's below the playoff line is garbage. They're all of them. I don't care. No, they're all garbage. So if they beat a team that's not above the playoff line, those teams suck. If a team is dealing with a lot of injuries, well, beating them doesn't count because they're dealing with injuries. So what you end up with is maybe 5 teams that fans will say, well, yeah, that counts as a win. Otherwise, they can discredit every single win a team gets. So I'm keeping that in mind. I wanted to do that up front before getting into the 4 teams that are on 8-game or longer winning streaks, starting with the Winnipeg Jets, who've won 8 in a row. They're 3 points ahead of Colorado. They're 7 points ahead of Dallas. And if they keep playing like this, they might very well run away and hide with the division. That being said, it is worthy of note that of the 8 games they've played, only one has been against a team above the playoff line currently, and that's Tampa Bay. The other teams on the board have played more than one against teams above the playoff line, but as I said, hey, you can discredit basically anything. So, for this winning streak for the Jets, who's been their top performer points-wise? Vlad Nemestikov, 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points. Goaltending's been helping them a lot throughout this, and just the depth. The fact Vlad Nemestikov's the top scorer with this run shows you the depth, and that's why I think this is sustainable. Perfetti, 4 goals, 3 assists. Ehlers, 4 goals, 3 assists. Lowry, 2 goals, 5 assists. You know they're going to get Connor back in a few weeks. Scheifele currently out. We don't know for how long, but again, Scheifele's name's not among the top 4 scorers, and Adam Lowry is. So this is a team that has ridiculous scoring depth in Winnipeg. I've liked the team the whole time, and here they are. So their 8-game winning streak goes as follows. It started with a win at home against Minnesota, 4-2, which again doesn't count. They're below the playoff line and they're beat up. Then they went to Minnesota and won 3-2. Same. They're at home. They beat Tampa Bay 4-2 to get the winning streak to 3. But you can look at that and say, well, Tampa Bay's above the playoff line. However, see, there you go. Then they went to San Jose and they won 2-1. Doesn't count, right? Then they won against Anaheim 3-1. So it's a 5-game winning streak. 6-2 at Arizona, pretty impressive win there, and then they went at home against Columbus 5-0. Before last night, needing a comeback to beat Chicago 2-1. And again, Chicago seems to be playing a really interesting style of hockey that's hard to watch with Bedard out, and yet I'm impressed by it because it's a formula that's keeping them in games that they really don't have any right to be in. So their upcoming schedule, they're at home against Philly, they're at home against the Islanders, then they go to Ottawa, they're at Boston, they're at Toronto, and then they're home against Toronto before the All-Star break. So at home against Philly and at home against the Islanders, there's a good chance they're going to win 10 in a row, and I'll need to do the video on the Jets at that point. I've done a video on the Jets recently, but I'm usually able to come up with a different way of looking at it. But yeah, things are pretty strong for Winnipeg. Again, you can tear apart a winning streak if you want, and we'll do that with Florida's as well. Florida's won 9 in a row. They're now only 1 point behind Boston. It feels like Boston was like 8 to 10 points ahead in the division at one point. They're 6 points ahead of Toronto, or those Florida Panthers as well, as they're doing their best to catch first place and maybe end up being first in the East. So Matthew Tkachuk has been a huge part of this. 7 goals, 11 assists, 18 points in 9 games for them. Verhaeghe, 7 goals, 8 assists, 15 points. And Barkov, ridiculous. Barkov has 15 assists, no goals. But you don't need a goal, and I said that like Pekka Rinne, and I heard it when I said it, or UC Saros. Sorry, Nashville goalie. I got it right eventually. You know, in the commercial with UC Saros, doesn't matter. So yeah, Barkov, 15 assists, no goals. Yeah, it's hard not to say it like Saros. Saros should totally copyright that or trademark it. Reinhart, 12 goals, 2 assists, 14 points. So you put 2 and 2 together, and what you find out is Barkov's pretty good at passing it to Reinhart. I think that's a good argument for why Reinhart should sign an extension with Florida. Maybe even sign for a little bit less than he'd get on the market because, well, no taxes, and B, he's had a fantastic run with the Florida Panthers, and clearly there's chemistry there. So their winning streak started with a win at home 4-2 over Vegas, who are above the playoff line. Then they go to Tampa Bay and they win 3-2, again above the playoff line. And then at home against the Rangers, they win 4-3. Playoff team as well. So an impressive first 3 games on that winning streak. Then at home against Montreal, they win 4-1. They go to Arizona, they win 4-1 as well. They won at Vegas by a score of 4-1, and then they decided all these fours, why don't we double it up? At Colorado, they won 8-4. So pretty impressive win there for Florida. And at St. Louis, they won 5-1. St. Louis doesn't have an asterisk for playoffs, but they're not far out. And then 3-2 overtime win last night against LA, and that was a comeback victory they needed. So both of these teams needing comeback victories last night, but they're on the board, and it's a 9-game winning streak for Florida. And I think of the 4 winning streaks on the board, I think Florida's might be the most impressive of the 4. You guys can let me know your thoughts. Their upcoming schedule, they're at home against New Jersey. I think they have a good chance of beating New Jersey tomorrow, and Sunday I'll be doing a 10-game winning streak video on Florida. Then they're at home against Anaheim, Detroit, Minnesota, all home games there. Those are all winnable games. The interesting thing is that if you want to tear a team down for not playing against what you consider to be quality opponents, when those teams that are below that line that you say they're not quality opponents defeat a team like Florida or Winnipeg, whoever, then you say, see, they aren't any good because they lost those games. So that's where it gets kind of tricky. So then after that homestand, Florida goes out on the road for 1. They go to Nashville. They come home and play Arizona, and then they go on the road for 2 more at Pittsburgh and at the New York Islanders before the break. So again, it's a busy schedule, but it's not an overly difficult schedule when you look at the opponents that are coming up for Florida. They could have this streak run for a while yet. Then we get to the Edmonton Oilers. So we're back out west with this one. The Oilers have won 9 in a row as well. They're the number 1 wild card in the West, and I've seen a lot of, they're just a wild card team, from people who may not be paying attention to how much the Oilers have been charging recently. They're 3 points back now of LA for 3rd in the division. They're only 8 points behind Vegas for 2nd place in the division. So considering how Vegas's play has been lately, they did get the victory last night, but seriously, the Oilers are just absolutely steamrolling right now through the league. McDavid, during that 9-game winning streak, 5 goals, 10 assists. 15 points in 9 games is a lot for anybody not named McDavid. But it does feel like, he's not quite getting 2 points a game. Hyman, 8 goals, 4 assists. When you're spoiled by a player, you're spoiled by a player. But yeah, Hyman, 8 goals in those 9 games. He's been a huge part of it. Draisaitl, 6 goals, 3 assists, so his goal scoring's picked up. And McLeod, 5 goals, 4 assists, 9 points for Ryan McLeod. Very happy to see him on the board as well. So when I see people saying, well, it's just McDavid, again, they're not watching the Oilers recently. McLeod's been very good. I've talked about Fogle a lot. Bouchard's been excellent on the point. Nurse has been playing better. There's a lot of reasons to look at the Oilers right now and say, hey, and Skinner's been good. And again, last night, Pickard gave them capable goaltending in a victory. So their winning streak starts at New Jersey, 6-3. Then at the New York Rangers, who again, above the playoff line, 4-3 win there. And then at San Jose, they won 5-0. Then they come home. They in LA won in a shootout, 3-2. LA above the playoff line as well. Then in Anaheim, they won 7-2. Then they come home. They beat Philadelphia 5-2 in their homecoming. They beat Ottawa 3-1. And then at Chicago, they won 2-1. And last night at Detroit, it's a 3-2. I think that was a comeback victory as well in overtime. So there's definitely some synergy between these teams. So the upcoming schedule for the Oilers, in order to reach that 10th win in a row, they would have to win in Montreal tomorrow. Remembering all 32 teams are playing tomorrow, so perfect time for a cold snap that's going to keep me out of my room for a couple of days. But yeah, the win over Montreal, I would think that's very likely. Although Montreal's coming off of a loss against San Jose, they might be a little ornery tomorrow. We shall see. Then they're at home against Toronto, at home against Seattle. They go on the road to play Calgary. So that should be fun because Calgary seems to be picking up their play lately. They come home, they play Columbus, Chicago, and Nashville going into the All-Star break. So again, these are busy schedules. They're not overly daunting schedules for these teams that are on these winning streaks. So there's a very good reason to think these winning streaks could continue. And now we come to Seattle. The Joey Decord show being as it is and all. So 8 wins in a row for Seattle. They are now tied with Nashville, who are the number 2 wild card, and Edmonton points-wise, who are the number 1 wild card. So really tight race in the West now. It feels like the opposite of how things ended last year in the West, where it didn't feel like anybody wanted that last playoff spot. At least this year, teams are charging for it. So 3 points back of LA, 8 points back of Vegas, the same as Edmonton for Seattle. And this is where, if you're a Kings fan, you have to be at least a little bit worried that the Kings play has been falling off, and both Seattle and Edmonton are charging. And if they pass LA could find themselves on the outside looking in when it comes to playoffs unless they can stay ahead of Nashville. So, yeah, the LA Kings look pretty comfortable early in the year, but maybe not so much now. During this winning streak, Dunn's been the number one scorer for Seattle, 4 goals, 5 assists. Tolvanen a goal and 5 assists. Morgan a goal and 4 assists. And Bjorkstrand a goal and 4 assists. This is not a team that's getting a lot of big production from a lot of big players. I've seen people saying, things about their roster. Now, it's not a very good roster, but Seattle rolls 4 lines. They roll 6 defensemen, and they're getting the goaltending from Joey Daccord that I think is the best goaltending they've had during their 2.5-year run in the National Hockey League. So looking at Seattle's winning streak, it starts with a 2-1 win at the LA Kings, so playoff team there. For how much longer, we'll see. They win at Anaheim 3-2. They won at Calgary 2-1. They came home. They won against Philadelphia in overtime 2-1. They beat Vegas 3-0. So again, Vegas, a team that's currently above the playoff line. How many of these teams had wins over Vegas? 2 of them. Although Florida had 2 wins over Vegas during their winning streak. Then against after the Vegas game here for Seattle, they win 4-1 at home against Ottawa. They go to Buffalo. They win 5-2, and last night they beat Washington 4-1. And that game was really never in any kind of doubt, which is too bad because when Seattle-Washington is your matchup, and the team's from Seattle-Washington, you want it to be a great game. But the upcoming schedule for Seattle is winnable. They're at Columbus tomorrow, and then they're at Pittsburgh. At the Rangers, that might be a tough one. The New York Rangers, even though their place slipped a bit lately, still a top team. And then they're at Edmonton. So this is really going to be a fun matchup if Edmonton and Seattle, I knew I was going to say that, and I still said anyways. If Edmonton and Seattle can keep their winning streak going until they play against each other, that'll be the first time we've seen 2 teams on 10-game winning streaks play against each other since Columbus and Minnesota did. I want to say 4 years ago was when they had 2 long winning streaks going and they collided with one another. So it's been that long. But after that game against Edmonton, they're home against Toronto, Chicago, St. Louis, and Columbus. So they have 2 games against Columbus before the All-Star break. I think there's a good chance that Seattle's in a playoff spot once we get to the All-Star break. After that, it's anybody's guess what's going to happen. So I understand they haven't played anybody portion of the audience. I know that's there. But any team that puts together an 8-game winning streak or a 9-game winning streak and further beyond that, it's impressive. I would go as far as to say any team that can win 4 games in a row, that's where you can kind of say, you know what, that's an impressive run, good for them, regardless of who they've played, right? Because as we saw last night, San Jose can win games. Anaheim went in and beat Nashville the other night. So the fact that these teams haven't fallen into those traps, I think they deserve some credit for that as well. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you have not done so already. And again, it'll be the makeshift set for the next couple of days, which is going to include tomorrow night's power rankings. In all likelihood, it's impossible for me to keep the set warm or even warm it up right now. It's just not going to happen. I can feel the heat just being taken out through the walls. So thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.